This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. In a flashback, we learnt that Reynard of Harburg was still intent on finding the Eye of Selethra and its keeper. After brutally torturing Lamorda's apprentice, Reynard found that by spilling Cirque's blood over the Eye of Mordgrim, the ancient bond between master and apprentice infused the Hellstone with an unerring sense of Lamorda's whereabouts. But that was not his only blasphemy. Reynard had forged a helm, set with the 3 Hellstones already in his possession, its design leaving space for the final 2. A helm which, when worn, would bestow its wearer with the terrible collective might of the Hellstones. Returning to the present and following their horrific encounter with the Sheodugenga, the companions pressed on towards Barfell. On the final day of their journey, a savage storm tore across the mountains, turning their descent into a perilous trial. Against wind and rain they endured, and with fortune on their side, by nightfall, the companions had safely returned to the town. Beyond the gates, they sought refuge at Lord Tuok's hall, where the Thane offered warmth and hospitality. Here, they were reunited with Hedrick, their guide, who had fled the valley of Penmelkine after facing the same dread Sheodugenga. In a private audience with Lord Tuok, the companions recounted the grim fate of Demelza and the destruction of the Eye of Krevik. The Thane commended their valour, then shared news. A message from Lord Petrop confirmed that Canute had reached Penglanau, but also carried a summons that Tuok must march at once with half his men, for the Loyalists were gathering their own strength. But now, we turn once more to Canute, where through a strange twist of fortune, the Skarne warlord has found Beric's father, Jarl Einar. Chapter 73, Part 1, Day 65, Evening. Party status: Canute, 40 out of 40 hit points. The hearthfire crackled, spitting sparks up into the smoke-darkened rafters. The rich aroma of ale mingled with roasting meat permeated the air, as the fellowship of warriors reunited filled the mead hall. Golden firelight danced over the carved beams and walls, and laughter rang bright beneath the timbered roof. It had been many a year since the crew of the Uvadraka had enjoyed the company of their kin, and a chorus of voices rose and swelled like a tide, with stories swapped and rekindled friendship. Following their unexpected meeting with Jarl Einar, the Uvadraka had followed the Vindnadra to a nearby cove and river inlet, where granite cliffs gave way to gentler banks and a small town which had grown around the natural harbour. Fishing boats rocked upon their moorings, nets hung drying in the salt breeze, and timber longhouses stood shoulder to shoulder above the quay, smoke curling from their roofs into the evening sky. Canute had been surprised to learn that Einar was in fact the lord of the settlement, part of a small Skarne enclave on the Wayland coast. Several years after Canute himself had accompanied his uncle on a raiding voyage, Einar had returned in the spring thaw, not with sword bared, but with open hand, and negotiated a truce with the region's petty king. Reged was a minor kingdom in the northeast of Llanrhys, a land of green hills and rain-fed valleys. Its people hardy, but worn by years of fear. They had suffered greatly at the hands of the Northmen. Farmsteads burned, silver plundered, their kin slain, else taken as slaves. So in return for land and title, Einar had agreed to protect the king's domain from further Skade raids. To seal the bargain, Knut's uncle was to wed the king's daughter, but the girl, barely more than a child, was lovesick for another, her heart already given, and her eyes red from weeping. Einar did not have the heart to force her. Instead, the Northman swore that he would not wed any daughter of the king's rivals, binding himself in honour rather than in chains. In truth, it suited him. Regardless of the pact, the Northman still held his lands in Scanvia, and planned to spend the summers in his northern homeland, while wintering in the more forgiving climes of his new domain, where the frost bit less cruelly and the earth yielded grain. Now Canute sat beside his uncle at the high table, watching his men with quiet satisfaction, content to see them free of the cares of recent days. For his part, he had told of his meeting with Beric and the others, the discovery of their shared kinship, and the trouble brewing in Power Moor.
Tell me,
Einar asked, wiping the froth of ale from his beard with the back of his broad hand.
what manner of man is he, my son?
Canute drained his own cup, feeling the warmth of it settle in his chest, and gave a short, dry laugh.
I could tell you that he is as strong as a bear, that he fights as well as any man I have known, or that the sea runs deep in his veins. All of it would be true.
He turned to look at his uncle, the humour fading from his features.
But that is not what you ask.
No.
Einar agreed, his gaze dropping briefly to the fire.
It is not, though I am glad to hear it.
Canute waited while a serving girl, cheeks flushed from heat and haste, came and refilled the men's cups. The ale sloshed amber in the firelight. The girl gave a respectful bow and left. Canute watched her as she walked away, then took a slow mouthful, considering his words with care.
He is a man of courage and honor.
He said at last, each word measured.
He speaks the truth, even when it serves him not. He defends the weak, despite having nothing to gain. And for those he loves, there is no more loyal a friend.
The Northman fixed his uncle with a steady gaze, his voice lowering, so that it was almost lost beneath the roar of the hall.
He is like you, uncle.
Einar smiled, and though he blinked it away, his eyes glistened wet in the firelight. Canute took another swig from his cup, the solemnity of the moment pressing close, then broke into a grin.
That is to say, he is as ugly as a horse.
The pair roared with laughter, and Einar thumped his nephew on the shoulder with a force that nearly drove the breath from him. Around them, a few heads turned, grinning at the outburst. But the humour faded as swiftly as it had come, and they sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the revelry. Einar's eyes grew distant, clouded with recalled memory, as though he looked not upon the hall, but some long-vanished shore.
Freya would be proud.
His voice was soft, threaded with regret and longing.
Truly, you loved her.
It was not so much a question as an acknowledgement. It struck Canute then that he had never known his uncle to bed another woman, nor boast of such a conquest as other men did so freely. Einar nodded slowly, his eyes still far away.
The moment I saw her, I knew the fates had brought us together.
The corners of his mouth rose in a wry smile.
We gave our oaths and were handfast, and I promised that I would one day return for her.
He let out a mournful sigh.
Oh, but my father forbade it. And by the time I had my own ship, I learnt that Brea was dead.
Canute stared wide-eyed at his uncle.
Then,
The words caught in the Northman's throat as Einar turned to meet his gaze. His uncle dipped his head in solemn affirmation.
Beric is no bastard.
His voice was steady with truth.
He is my heir.
With Einar now firmly established in the fiction of the present, it's time to flesh him out as a character. Einar is an 11th level fighter. He is 43 years old, with dark brown hair and blue eyes. He stands at an impressive 6'1" and weighs 200 pounds. I rolled 6 stats off Mike, with my usual rule of re-rolling anything less than an 8, then assigned them to make the most sense for his character, resulting in the following: Strength 14, Intelligence 10, Wisdom 12, Dexterity 13, Constitution 10, and Charisma 18. With 98 plus 4 possible hit points, I rolled 58. If I were purely gaming it, I would have put that rare 18 in Strength, but the fiction has already determined that Einar is highly charismatic and a natural leader, so I decided that it made more sense to assign it to Charisma. Now, while I think it unlikely that Einar would refuse to come to Beric's aid, I am going to make a reaction roll to confirm it. Before I get to that, I wonder whether Lords Conwyn and Petrock have also offered an incentive. Let's ask the Oracle. A 5. That's a straight yes. Okay, so I will say that the two lords will offer 3d6 times 10 gold for every man that Einar commits to their cause. A 12, so 120 gold per spear. As a Jarl, I will rule that Einar has 1d6 times 100 warriors that are oath-sworn to him. A 6! Wow! Einar is clearly a significant regional power. I think that when Canute's father, Jarl Harold, was killed, and with Canute becoming oathbound to Lord Conwyn, that many of Harold's warriors would have pledged their allegiance to Einar. Now, clearly Einar will have left warriors back in Scanvia, defending his lands, so I will rule that he has half, so 300, men with him in Llanrhys. I do not think he can spare the men in Scanvia, lest some opportunist rival tries to take his undefended lands. It would also take too long to return north, gather his army and sail to Power Moor. In addition, he cannot leave his new lands in Llanrhys undefended, so I will rule that the maximum number of warriors he could bring would be 200, or 5 crewed ships. This will yield a payment of 24,000 gold. On the assumption that he pays his men 100 gold each for the expedition, then Einar himself will still profit by 4,000 gold. With a very generous payment from their lord, equivalent to 4 months' pay, I am not going to force a loyalty check. Okay, so now for that reaction roll. I am going to apply a +4 modifier to account for the payment and for the blood bond between Einar, Beric and Canute. To up the stakes, this will be a single roll. Here it is. A modified 13. There is no doubt whatsoever in Einar's mind. So providing there are no issues on the journey, the Loyalist cause will benefit from 200 Skade warriors joining their ranks. Having said that, with repairs needed to the Uvadraka, and for Einar to make the necessary preparations, I will rule that it will be 10 days before the Skade warband is ready to set sail. In the meantime, Canute and his men will get a well-earned rest. Chapter 73, Part 2. Day 66. Morning. Party status. The party status is unchanged. A cockerel's crow split the morning silence. A sharp, defiant cry that seemed to tear the veil of night and herald the dawn. Canute stirred slowly as sleep loosened its hold on him. His head throbbed in heavy pulses, each beat echoing behind his eyes, while a bitter sourness coiled in his stomach, the price to pay for too much ale and too little restraint. With a low groan, he forced one eye open, wincing against the pale intrusion of day. A slender shaft of daylight slipped through a narrow opening beneath the eaves, catching the drifting motes of dust in its glow and casting a muted gold across the chamber's timbered walls. The longhouse itself was an imposing testament to power, worthy of a Jarl of Einar's formidable reputation. Stretching over 100 feet from end to end, its vast frame was supported by thick oak beams, carved with knotwork and beasts of famed sagas. Along its length lay several private chambers, set apart from the main hall. These were reserved for Einar himself, and those guests he deemed most honoured. The structure was so newly built that the oak still held a freshly cut warmth, its beams yet to weather and silver with age. Blinking away the haze of sleep, Canute turned his head upon the furs. Beside him lay the serving girl, her bare shoulders rising and falling softly beneath the heavy pelts. Like many among the townsfolk, she was Waylan, compelled to accept a foreign lord by Einar's pact with the king of Reged. Yet fate had been kind to them, for Einar ruled with an even hand, and those that lived beneath his banner did so with a fairness seldom afforded, especially by conquerors. The girl was no slave, at least no longer. Unlike many lords, Canute's uncle refused to keep thralls, and had freed those that came to him with the land, granting them coin and craft by which to shape new lives. Canute frowned, sifting through the fog of memory to summon her name. Blodaiweth. He reached out and shook her gently.
Wake up.
Blodaiweth stirred with a soft murmur, then pushed herself upright. Her loosened hair spilled in dark waves over her bare shoulders.
You should go.
She gave a small nod, her expression unreadable, and slipped from the bed. Drawing her dress over her head in one smooth motion, she settled the fabric about her hips, before deftly plaiting her hair with practiced, nimble fingers.
Here.
Canute extended a leather coin purse towards her. The gesture carried no implication of purchase. She had not sold herself. Rather, it was custom, an acknowledgement, a courtesy expected of a lord. Blodaiweth accepted the purse with a grateful nod, and pressed a demure kiss to his cheek. She pulled open the door, only to find Einar standing beyond it, his lips already parted in a knowing, playful grin. Blodaiweth lowered her gaze, and murmured deferentially as the Jarl stepped aside to let her pass.
Say nothing.
Canute groaned, pressing his fingers to his temples, as though he might quell both pain and embarrassment at once. Einar lifted his hands in exaggerated innocence, though the smirk tugging at his lips betrayed him.
I know not what you mean.
He stooped to retrieve Canute's discarded tunic from the rush-strewn floor, and tossed it across the room to his nephew.
Get dressed,
he said, still smiling.
We are going for a ride.
With Canute and Einar venturing beyond the town, which incidentally is called Abamora, it would be remiss of me not to check for a wandering encounter. A roll of 1 or 2 means there will be. Okay then. Chapter 73, Part 3, Day 66, Late Morning. Party status. The party status is unchanged. The Northmen's hair and cloaks streamed wildly behind them as they rode, snapping and cracking in the wind like banners in a storm, while clods of dark rain-softened earth were torn loose and flung high beneath their mounts' hooves. The thunder of gallop rolled across the open land. The rush of fresh morning breeze against his face soon swept away the dull thud behind Canute's eyes, clearing the last fog of ale-laden sleep and leaving him sharp and alive. He relished the wild exultation of the ride. There were few sensations to rival it, save perhaps the heave of a longship beneath his boots and the sting of salt spray upon his lips. He found almost as much pleasure on horseback as he did upon the open sea, delighting in the raw strength and living power of the animal surging beneath him. The native Wayland horses were a sturdy breed of stocky cobs, thick through the chest and sure of foot, known for their hardiness and placid temper. Yet Canute had not expected such a compact beast to possess such swiftness, as they devoured the ground with surprising grace. The riders followed the river upstream, its waters flashing silver in the midday sun, and after several miles, the neat patchwork of tilled fields and low meadows surrendered to open grasslands of a broad vale, cradled between rising hills. Sheep roamed freely across the valley floor, white flecks scattered upon a green sea. No doubt beneath the vigilant gaze of herders, guarding against poachers or thieves. In the distance, on either side of the winding river, thin columns of smoke rose lazily from the hamlets and isolated farmsteads that dotted the landscape, each plume dissolving softly into the bright sky. Gradually, the hills drew closer together, and the land ahead began to rise, ending in a craggy bluff of dark stone. Here, the river hurled itself over jagged rocks, cascading in a veil of white foam into a deep pool below. They dismounted, leaving their mounts to graze among the coarse grasses, as Einar led the climb up the steep banks. Beyond the summit lay an ancient forest of oak, ash and elm, their gnarled boughs intertwining like a lover's embrace, while looking back, the vast sweep of the vale stretched out before them. They stood in silence, watching the broad shadows of passing clouds drifting across the fertile landscape. Einar breathed deeply, filling his lungs and letting out a long, contented sigh.
I am lord over everything you see.
There was no arrogance in his voice, only a deep-rooted satisfaction, the pride of toil rewarded.
It is good land, uncle.
Canute acknowledged, his gaze lingering on the distant farms.
Aye, it is.
Einar's voice was pensive.
Land a father could bequeath a son.
The older man turned to his nephew, his weathered features softened by something unspoken.
Beric could come here now.
He suggested it quietly, though his eyes betrayed that he knew the thought was little more than wishful fancy. Perhaps age and wisdom had made him tired of battle.
He has no need to fight another's war. He is bound by no oath.
The words sounded as though he meant them for himself as much as for Canute.
True enough,
Canute replied.
but I am.
His voice was tinged with bitterness. His oath compelled him to answer Lord Conwyn's call. For Canute, war was not an option.
And Beric and I are bound by blood, just as you and father were.
A wry smile touched his lips, fleeting and edged with memory. The two men fell silent once more, the weight of kinship and consequence heavy between them. Far in the distance, beyond the soft haze where land met sky, the ocean glistened beneath the sun like a blade drawn from its sheath. Even from here, Canute could feel its call. He knew Beric would not forsake his companions, nor the land that had given him purpose. Honour would hold him fast as surely as any oath. That truth lingered in Canute's thoughts.
You once told me that a man is judged by his reputation, but so are our people.
Canute fixed Einar with a steady gaze.
From Friska to the Salian Empire, our dragon ships strike fear in the hearts of all that see them.
His words rang with stark certainty.
Even when we come to trade, the welcome is reluctant, if given at all. We are ever wolves at the door.
And for good reason.
Einar acknowledged it, without pride. It was no secret that the Skarne, at times, cloaked steel beneath the guise of trade.
But if you answered Conwyn and Petroc's call for aid, then you lay the ground for an alliance, as you have shown here.
He swept his arm towards the fertile vale below.
Alliances bring opportunity.
Einar's lips spread into a broad grin, the fire returning to his eyes. He clapped a heavy hand upon Canute's shoulder, the gesture firm and resolute.
Well then,
he said, the decision settling over him like a mantle.
we shall go to war.
Without warning, the sharp hiss of an arrow split the air. The iron head struck Einar squarely in the left shoulder blade, with a sickening thud, punching through wool and flesh. The Jarl's roar echoed against the stone cliff as the impact drove him forward. His body lurched violently, boots skidding across loose gravel, the cliff's jagged edge only a step away. For a terrifying instant, his weight tipped towards the fall, the drop below plunging 60 feet into a churning, rock-strewn pool. Canute reacted without a thought. His hand shot out, seizing the back of his uncle's tunic, fingers locking tight as he hauled him backwards from the brink. Einar staggered, breath hissing between his teeth, as pain radiated from where the arrow had struck. Both men spun around in the same motion, releasing their blades from their sheaths as they faced the trees behind them. The undergrowth parted. 4 mail-clad men stepped out from the shadows. The sun glinted brightly off their bared swords and helms.
Medrot!
Einar spat the name through clenched teeth, his face contorted with pain and fury. The leader advanced a pace ahead of the others. Medrot moved with the slow, assured stride of a hunter who knew his prey had nowhere left to run. A cruel smile crept across his face, his eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction as he studied the wounded Jarl teetering near the cliff. His lip curled.
Now you die.
Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show to reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? A newcomer to the show, playing the role of Medrot, is Steve Brute. Steve is an avid solo roleplayer, and you can follow his adventures on his various socials under the moniker Cup of Solo. Returning to the show, playing the role of Einar, is J. Brandon Payne. Brandon is a professional voice actor and musician who graciously agreed to appear on the show. Also returning, in his usual role of Canute, is my comrade in arms, John Cohen, creator of Tale of the Manticore. My sincere thanks to Steve, Brandon and John. Your contributions have really elevated this episode, and I am, as always, incredibly grateful. I'll put these wonderful folks' links in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you'd like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. If you can't wait another 3 weeks to hear my dulcet tones, then you might want to head over to Bite-Sized Tales on your podcatcher of choice. There you will find a short story called No Good Deed Goes Unpunished, which I recently recorded. Also, I'd like to remind you about the Solo Roleplayers Network. We are a group of like-minded creators, bringing you a curated list of the very best solo roleplay podcasts. So why not head over to soloroleplayersnetwork.com and discover something new. Finally, I'd love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones, at ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.
Hi, I'm John from Tale of the Manticore.
Robin from Stories from the First Watch.
PJ from A Wasteland Story and the Solo Roleplayers podcast.
Simon from Legend of the Bones.
Brian Rideout from Swords Against Madness.
Carl from The Lone Adventurer.
And I'm Trevor from Your Story Will Be Different.
And with our solo role-playing audio,
Narrative,
Actual play.
Drama powers combined.
We are the Solo Roleplayers podcast network.
Usually accustomed to delving the depths,
Scouring the desert.
Surviving the wasteland,
or facing the dragon alone.
This time, we have teamed up to bring you a curated collection
of the best,
highest quality,
Most dramatic.
And diciest.
Solo roleplay podcasts in the world.
There are dozens of us.
So if you're looking for your next solo role-playing adventure,
roll over to soloroleplayersnetwork.com.
Sample and subscribe to something that takes your fancy.
And discover your new favourite solo role-playing podcast.
See you there.